Welcome to Stick to Sports. I'm Ben Diamond.
And I'm Brian Burrows. Today we take a look at NFL Week 6, the MLB Championship Series, and some big college football results.
Roll it. The Cleveland Browns defeated the San Francisco 49ers 19-17 after kicker Jake Moody missed a game-winning field goal with time expiring. The Browns defense was able to do what many others have tried to, and that is to neutralize Brock Purdy. The 49ers offense was largely ineffective against the Browns, totaling only 215 yards of offense. Injuries to key offensive players did not help the Niners either, though. Brian, does a loss like this help a team as good as the Niners not get complacent?
I'm going to say no, just because I don't think complacency is really a thing that you deal with this early into the season. Complacency you see more like weeks 14, 15 when you're really on a roll and then they kind of forget the fundamentals. But this early in the season, I think teams are still trying to find that groove. As the Niners, they found it early, but a game like this, you kind of lose that groove a little. So I don't think it's necessarily a complacency thing. The Niners also got pretty unlucky with injuries. You know, they lost McCaffrey, Debo, Trent Williams, huge losses on the offense, big star players for them. But also their defense really needs to take notes from what happened in this game. They may have been complacent. P.J. Walker should not be throwing for almost 200 yards in them, and they need to be better at stopping the run, 160 total yards on the ground. And pass rush needs to step up. Only 2 sacks from Bosa and Gregory. That pass rush is electric. They need to do better. Yeah, and I mean, Purdy was not connecting on throws that he's been connecting with on in the first 5 weeks of the season, and that certainly has a lot to do with how this game ended. Of course, not getting a lot of that offense, but also, as I mentioned before, the injuries. Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, both going down with injuries somewhere in the middle of the game certainly will not help Brock Purdy when his weapons are going down and doesn't have as many options. The Philadelphia Eagles traveled up to MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets and lost 20-14. The Jets defense stood strong, intercepting Hurts 3 times and holding the Eagles running backs to 39 yards on the ground. Zach Wilson threw for 186 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. A late fourth-quarter interception by Hurts gave the Jets the ball in good field position, and Breece Hall found the end zone for the only Jets touchdown of the day, giving them the lead. Ben, can the Jets defense carry them into the playoffs?
I mean, I think the Jets defense absolutely can carry them into the playoffs. I think right now they're still third place in the AFC East, but that's because they have to contend with the likes of the Dolphins and the Bills. But this Jets defense is top 3 in the league, and I was talking about this earlier, and I felt like that when Zach Wilson is not making mistakes like he didn't last night, he made 0 mistakes, no interceptions, no fumbles, none of that. The offense was able to keep the ball, and they were able to chip away with field goals. And I think that's super important, especially when the defense is holding teams to around 14 points.
Yeah, and I mean, the old adage is defense wins championships. A really good defense is going to get you pretty far in this league. But also, I think they hit an Eagles team that was riding high on 5-0, but wasn't really playing their best ball, and they finally hit a team that could stop them. Hurts has showed some regression. 3 picks last week is pretty uncharacteristic, but he hadn't been playing the best. The Eagles' defense looked good against the Jets' offense, which has been struggling this year, but they did hold Breece Hall, who had been going off to under 40 yards. He did find the end zone, but the Eagles have not been what they were last year, and I think the Jets' defense took advantage of that.
Things have not always gone their way for the Cincinnati Bengals to start the season, but they have weathered the storm as they climb back into the AFC North race, winning 3 of their last 4 games. Although the offense has not looked like it has the last few years, the defense has picked up the slack, holding the Seahawks to only 13 points on Sunday. While Joe Burrow did not look like he did last year, he did enough to put the Bengals over the top. With a couple of key matchups the next 2 weeks, can the Bengals prove that they are still one of the better teams in the NFL, Brian?
Absolutely, the Bengals can prove they're one of the better teams. 3-3 is not a bad start to the season, and they have a lot of room to go up from here. You mentioned the easy couple weeks for them. I mean, their roster is very, very similar to what it was last year. They did not have a lot of roster turnover. They added pieces, which is always huge. The receivers are still the same. I mean, Jamar is still a top 5 receiver. Tyler Boyd stepped up. against a good Seahawks secondary. Devon Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen are very good corners on the outside. So go to the slot guy, Tyler Boyd. He's still a very good weapon for them. I know Joe Mixon's been struggling this year, but he still has potential on a week-to-week basis to be top 10, top 5. Just go off. You've seen it at least once a year. And their defense is playing well enough to keep them in games. I mean, they had 4 sacks, 2 interceptions on Geno Smith, who is a really good quarterback, and held them to just 1 passing touchdown.
Yeah, and I mean, the Seahawks led in every single offensive category, but interceptions from Geno Smith halted any momentum the offense had in its tracks. And while I do think they have a long way to go, the Bengals do, because they face the 49ers and then the Bills these next 2 weeks, so it's going to be a big test for the Bengals going forward.
And a matchup between the then number 7 ranked Washington Huskies and number 8 ranked Oregon Ducks. We saw Washington quarterback Michael Penix throw for a touchdown with 1:38 to go in the game to give Washington a 36-33 lead. Oregon quarterback Bo Nix then went 6 for 6 for 36 yards and drove Oregon into field goal range, but kicker Camden Lewis missed the 43-yard field goal to tie the game and go to overtime. Michael Penix threw for 302 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Bo Nix had 337 and 2 touchdowns. Ben, Washington is now ranked number 5 in the AP poll. Do they have a shot at the college football playoff?
I think they do, 100%. I mean, the way Michael Penix is playing right now, especially being in the Heisman race, the college football board is going to want a Heisman candidate like Michael Penix to make it into the college football playoffs. And I mean, they even allowed over 500 yards of offense, which is a ton. So Washington's defense was not getting done. I mean, Bo Nix is a really solid, really good college quarterback. However, Michael Penix just being able to outduel him throughout the entire game and just stay ahead, I think that's what's most important. And also, I think what's important for Washington as well, they have a late in the season gauntlet, USC, Utah, and Oregon State, in order to push themselves into the conversation again of being in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, you mentioned that really hard schedule. I mean, the Pac-12 this year is a really strong conference, despite the fact that it might be falling apart within the next 2 years. They currently have 6 ranked teams, and then Washington State was in there last week before the rankings came out. So you mentioned that gauntlet. They very much have a chance that they go undefeated to make it into the playoff. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the MLB playoffs, more NFL and college football talk, as well as the start of the NHL season here on WTOP 10.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Shine on that black.
Look at the bling. Look at do we got a diamond tester on? Yeah, that's getting bad. Yep.
10 out of 10 recommend on Yelp.
Score going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone.
What? I should take your phone away.
No. I'll call for a ride. Wait, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. But I need that back.
No.
Kevin!
Welcome back to Stick to Sports. The Buffalo Bills defeated the New York Giants 14-9 in what was a very ugly performance for both teams on offense. Although the Bills won the game, they didn't score their first points until the fourth quarter on a pass from Josh Allen to Deontay Hardy. While the Giants led for most of the game, they were unable to close it out as the offense was never able to find the end zone. Brian, does this game say more about the Giants or the Bills?
I'm very much saying that this says a lot more about the Bills than it does the Giants. The Giants honestly looked pretty similar to what they had been the last couple of weeks. Tyrod gave them a spark. The passing game was definitely a little bit more than it had been with Daniel Jones, but ultimately they really were kind of the same. Couldn't get into the end zone and just couldn't really do a lot on the ground. But the Bills were held down for the second week in a row. Yes, they won the game. That's because, again, the Giants really haven't been able to do much, and they really should have lost. I mean, that last second, the last second no call on the penalty on the holding there was egregious, really. So I really think that Allen's decision-making needs to step up, and it says a lot more about what the Bills can do this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it seems like this Bills team does a 180 every week, and I mean, if not for late blunders from the Giants at half and at the end of the game, as well as controversial calls, this might have gone the other way.
The Lions improved to 5-1 this season after beating the Buccaneers 20-6 in Tampa Bay. Jared Goff threw for 353 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Amon-Ra St. Brown catching 12 balls for 124 yards and a touchdown. Baker Mayfield threw for only 203 yards and 1 interception, with Bucs backs getting only 40 rushing yards. Ben, how legit are the Lions this year?
I think the Lions are absolutely legit this year, Brian. I really, really love what I'm seeing from this team. And I mean, Jared Goff is playing exactly as he did back in 2019, back when he made the Super Bowl with the Rams. This is the Jared Goff that the Lions were hoping they would get, kind of as a reclamation project, and it's worked to perfection. Absolutely love what I'm seeing. The offense and defense are both clicking, but injuries, I feel like, are going to be, they might be the Achilles heel heading down the stretch if the injuries start to keep piling up.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned David Montgomery probably be out for a couple weeks now. That's a huge hit with Jahmyr Gibbs being out the last, I think, 2 weeks. But the Lions have absolutely handled every single team they've placed since week 2. They've outscored teams by 60 points. And even the first 2 weeks, they didn't look too bad. And they a very easy NFC North this year. They should run all the way, at least to the playoffs.
I completely agree. The Buffalo Sabres opened their 2023-2024 season facing off against both the Rangers and the Islanders. Unfortunately, they were unable to come away with a win. After a strong season last year, the Sabres faithful are hoping to take another giant leap this season, but a slow start is not something they want to see. Is this a case of rust being shaken off, Brian?
Yeah, I would say so. The Sabres are a very young team. They have not a lot of experience, a lot of young players who are still coming into this league, coming into their own. Tage Thompson being one of those players, Dylan Cousins. I think they're going to need some time to just kind of get into the season, but they were good last year. They just missed the playoffs, and they played 2 teams, the Rangers and the Islanders, who made the playoffs last year. The Rangers are a very good team. They're going to be a good team again this year. The Islanders are showing promise, and they kept it close versus them as well. So I think it's just a rust thing. I think they'll definitely turn things around, and I think even make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, this Sabres team is a really good team, as you mentioned, really young team. Devin Levi, the goaltender for the Sabres, he looked great in limited appearances last season, has kind of gotten a little shaky, but again, I think that rust is certainly playing a factor, and we've yet to see Tage Thompson light the lamp, but I'm sure that's coming very, very soon.
In Game 1 of the ALCS, the Texas Rangers shut out the Houston Astros 2-0. Jordan Montgomery went into the 7th without giving up a run. Both of the Rangers' runs came up Justin Verlander. In Game 2, the Rangers took a 4-0 lead in the first and knocked starter Framber Valdez out in the third. The Astros couldn't overcome the deficit and lost 5-4 as the Rangers took a 2-0 series lead. Ben, can the Rangers go undefeated through the AL side of the playoffs?
You know, I'd like to think that they'd end this in a sweep right here, but truly, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that the Astros, they have too much playoff experience to let the Rangers, a very young team with a ton of young players, just squirt right past them into the World Series. So I think that experience is going to come into play in games 3, 4, and 5 as we go forward. But right now, winning both games in Houston to start the series is absolutely huge. And again, I think that comes back to that youth. And with the youth, getting those wins early, I think that's super important in keeping that energy high.
Yeah, and home field advantage in baseball is probably one of the biggest advantages. And they get Scherzer starting in Game 3, which is huge too. Such experience, especially in the playoffs. That's, I think, almost guaranteed win. So I think a sweep is almost expected at that point.
The Philadelphia Phillies and the Arizona Diamondbacks both dominated their respective NLDS series and now face off to see who will make it to the World Series. Game 1 is in its latter half, but Brian, I want to hear your take on who you think will go through to the World Series between these two teams.
I'm taking the Phillies in this one. I think it probably in 5 games. It depends on how game 1 ends. I know last I checked it was 5-3 in favor of the Phillies in the middle of the game. But I do like the Phillies. The experience is huge. I mean, it was 3 bombs early in game 1 of the series. The D-backs are just so young. They don't have that experience. Even like the pitching staff, just there isn't really anybody who knows how to play in the playoffs. And they're playing in Philadelphia, one of the hardest places to play in baseball, especially in the postseason. It gets so loud, so crazy there. And it's so hard for opposing teams to win games in that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's already putting on a show. I mean, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, still doing their thing, continuing it from the series versus the Braves. And as you said, Citizens Bank Park, really difficult to play, especially for young players. So I'd say maybe Phillies in 6. I'll give the D-backs a little benefit.
In a 48-20 loss to Notre Dame, Caleb Williams failed to reach 200 yards passing for the first time since October 8, 2022, and threw more than 1 interception for the first time in his college career. USC fell from number 10 to number 18 in the AP rankings. Ben, Caleb Williams' odds for the Heisman went from plus 200 to plus 3,500. How much of an overreaction is this?
I honestly think that it's a pretty big overreaction from college football, from the odds makers. This is one bad performance, albeit versus a very good defense. So I guess people are saying, oh, this is the first time he faced a really good defense, and he kind of folded. So is that going to be a sign of things to come in the NFL? Is he going to face a good defense and not be able to play up to his abilities, what we've seen? Maybe that's why they've dropped him so much. But he still has 23 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. So I think the stats speak for themselves, and I think Caleb Williams still should have much higher odds for the Heisman.
Yeah, I agree. This is a major overreaction. I think he's being hindered by the fact that he won it last year, and his stats last year were way better now that he had the 3 picks. But it's a massive, massive overreaction. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ben will be joined by one of our producers, Alex Brooks, here on WTOP 10.
La, 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 la. Free. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. Free.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
We'll deep dive into our feelings in our Real Talk segment. Stay tuned because it's about to get real.
And it could be your last chance to see one occur for 2 decades, as the next time one will be visible over the continental U.S.
He's May 84. Yarrow told police in the hospital that he had pressed the doorbell and waited.
They mix with oxygen and nitrogen and become briefly
Welcome back to Stick to Sports. Joining me now is Alex Brooks, one of our producers. Alex, what do you have for us tonight?
Thanks, Ben. Week 6 of the NFL season saw a lot of crazy storylines, including problems with the NFL turf. There have been multiple players that have struggled to stay healthy for a full season, and the turf conditions have came up into conversation regarding them. With guys like Garrett Wilson and Christian McCaffrey going down in Week 6, Ben, does the NFL have a problem they need to address with playing on turf?
I mean, this is a conversation they should be having year after year. I think it's even come to more of a head this season because of the amount of injuries within the first 6 weeks that have happened, non-contact leg injuries. We saw a lot of hamstring. We saw Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill with the hamstring. We saw Trayvon Diggs in practice on turf. We've seen a ton of ACL injuries and hamstring injuries arise early in this season, and that has to be attributed to the turf. And I think stadiums are planning on changing to natural grass for the FIFA World Cup just a few years away. So why they aren't also considering it for their own teams is really confusing to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Ben, I want to go back to the Super Bowl when they had that artificial turf that was supposed to help the players, and that did anything but. Both the Eagles and Chiefs were slipping, and it wasn't really helping out. And a lot of players have wanted to have grass, and I think the NFL really needs to make a change. Staying on the gridiron, we saw the New York Jets defeat the Philadelphia Eagles 20-14 in a big defensive battle. With multiple players out on the secondary on both teams, the Jets defense forced 3 interceptions to clinch their first franchise win against the Eagles. Ben, with the Jets making Pat Mahomes and now Jalen Hurts look bad, are the Jets for real this season?
I mean, I was talking about it earlier with Brian. I really do think that the Jets are on the upswing. They're on the upswing right now. And we see Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, he has a ton of confidence in this team, in this defense. And now while he's saying they played gauntlet quarterbacks and that they haven't gotten all wins, but we've embarrassed all of them, it's not 100% true. I like the confidence that he has, especially in his team, in this young team that is on the upswing, that needs that confidence boost. I think that's good of him to say, but if we're looking at it from a logic standpoint, from a past game standpoint, that's not entirely true, because we've seen them lose to the likes of Mac Jones, who now cannot get anything going on offense against other teams as well. So we're not 100% sure what's going on there in New England, but right now the Jets, they're looking really good, and I think that they could squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah, my thing is, Ben, quickly, the Jets' defense is for real. The offense, really not yet. We got to see what Zach Wilson can do against more competition. Exciting developments are happening as the 2028 Olympics will welcome 6 new sports to the worldwide competition. Sports such as baseball and softball will make their return, but flag football will make its debut in Los Angeles. Ben, will these additions create more hype for this big event?
You know, I think it will. I mean, we see the lineup of sports: baseball, softball, cricket, lacrosse, flag football, squash. So cricket being added, that's, of course, going to add a lot of hype, because cricket is a huge, huge sport around the world. It's not really tapped into here in the States, but around the world, cricket is huge. So that's already going to create a lot of hype just on a world level. But for baseball and flag football specifically, I think it would only create hype if MLB or NFL players or former NFL players were able to go in and play in these games. Unfortunately, the Olympics happen during the MLB season, and active NFL players probably won't want to play to risk a non-contact injury. So while it could create hype, and it probably is right now, it's still 5 years away. So there's not 100% certainty whether or not these will create the exact hype that they're hoping for.
Yeah, and I feel like if you have those players that are coming in, like old players coming, I think that'll make a lot of excitement. Also, the person who watches that specific sport is going to love these new sports coming in.
We're going to take a quick break here on Stick to Sports. Thanks once again to Alex for the fast break. And when we come back, Brian, Alex, and I will head into extra innings. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Stick to Sports on WTOP 10.
And it could be your last chance to see one occur for 2 decades, as the next time one will be visible over the continental U.S.
He's May 84. Yarl told police in the hospital that he had pressed the doorbell and waited.
They mix with oxygen and nitrogen and become briefly
What's going on?
Yeah, dude, we go on at like 11:30. It's like
no.
What do you mean no?
It's 10:30.
10:30?
Yeah, it's 10:30.
What do you mean it's 10:30?
Hey, don't touch that. That's my ladder.
Hey, man.
Whoa.
You know this book was already discounted 10%?
Wow.
Wow.
Get a close up of that one.
Matthew,
Look at that.
Can we go back inside? I want to sleep in the studio again.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Stick to Sports. Now let's get ready for everyone's favorite tradition at WTOP 10, extra innings. All right, we'll start off with the Ohio State Buckeyes versus Penn State. I'll have you go first, Brian.
Give me the Buckeyes. -4.5. Penn State's good. They're having a really good season, but Ohio State is, I think, just better. -4.5, that's less than a touchdown, so I think Ohio State easily covers.
No, I think Ohio State is really good, but I don't know how much I trust McCord at QB to face a really, really good team in Penn State. I think that the Nittany Lions will actually put up a really good fight, and I think they will actually win this one in a very close battle.
All right. Well, I am going to take the Ohio State Buckeyes just because they are favored, and I believe that they will win against Penn State. I'm picking with you, Brian. All right, so let's go over to the Alabama Crimson Tide versus the Tennessee Volunteers. I'll have you go, Ben.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you start this time.
All right, I'll start. I'm going to go with Alabama. Now, I have not loved what I've seen from the Crimson Tide so far this season, but in this matchup, I still feel like Alabama has the edge just based off of Nick Saban's coaching just expertise. I feel like he'll always just outcoach the other coach. So I'm going to take Alabama in this one.
Give me Tennessee. Alabama's good, but I don't trust Jalen Milroe. He seems to falter in those big games. Tennessee's offense is just so good. And I don't know if they'll win, but 8.5 I think is just too big for me.
I was buying into the Tennessee hype last year, and it didn't really go as planned. So I'm going to pick Alabama. I'm picking Alabama for this matchup. All right, let's move over to some NFL. An exciting matchup for many fans. The Baltimore Ravens versus the Detroit Lions. Ravens are favored, and I'll start with you, Brian.
I know the Ravens are home, but give me the Lions at Ravens -3. I don't even think the Ravens are going to win this game. Never mind get a field goal win. The Lions are playing so well this year. I think Jared Goff is going to rip that defense apart.
I'm going to have to agree there. I mean, the Lions, I was saying it before when we were talking about how they played this past week. I really, really like the Lions, and I think they're going to take this one as well.
Yeah, I feel like the Lions are very young right now, and everybody is really rooting for them. And I feel like this is going to be a good matchup, but I feel like the Lions will be able to take it. So we're all taking the Lions on this one. Let's go over to Sunday Night Football for next week. The Miami Dolphins, the red-hot Miami Dolphins, will face off against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Ben, I'll have you start off.
I know who you're picking in this one, Alex, so I don't think we need to go to you on this one. But I'm going to take the Dolphins. I think their offense is so hot, and I think that even though the Eagles' defense is solid, I don't think they have enough weapons to stop the likes of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, Ben, I'm riding with you on this one. I don't think the Eagles are winning this one at all. Dolphins' offense seems practically unstoppable at this point. I don't think the Eagles' defense is going to play that well.
Disgusting. This is a bounce-back game for Philadelphia. They are going to win. Miami's not coming into Philadelphia and beating us. This is a bounce-back game. All right, that's off my chest. Eagles are going to win this game. But we'll go over to our last matchup. It's going to be the Buffalo Sabres versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'll have you start off, Brian.
Give me the Sabres. I think they're playing at home. Lightning haven't had the hardest start. I think this is the Sabres' first win of the season. Easy bounce-back game for them.
No, I'm going to go opposite you there, Brian. I'm going to go with the Lightning. The Lightning still have that core. They're aging, but they're still really good.
And I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Lightning on this one. So
so we'll see. I mean, we're tied for last right now, so we'll have to see. Brian's in the lead.
I took a one-game lead on you guys, so.
We'll have to see next week.
That's all the time we have on this episode of Stick to Sports. Be sure to tune in next Monday at 10:30 right here on WTOP 10.